Imagine waking up 40,000 years ago with the exact same brain you have today. You can't sit still. Every sound grabs your attention. Your mind jumps from one thought to another before the first one even finishes. You notice everything: the birds, the wind, a branch moving 50 feet away, a strange smell drifting through the trees. Now imagine someone tells you to sit quietly on a rock for 8 straight hours. Sounds impossible, right? Luckily for you, nobody in the Stone Age was asking you to answer emails, sit through meetings, or memorize PowerPoint presentations. Instead, your tribe is about to spend the next 10 hours searching for food, while trying not to become food themselves. And suddenly, that restless brain doesn't seem like such a problem anymore. Today, ADHD is often described as a disorder: difficulty concentrating, impulsiveness, constant distraction, hyperactivity. Around the world, millions of people struggle with these symptoms every single day. But here's a question almost nobody asks. What if the traits we now call ADHD weren't originally a mistake? What if, for most of human history, they actually helped people survive? Because if ADHD were always a disadvantage, evolution should have erased it thousands of generations ago. Instead, it didn't. The genes linked to ADHD are still surprisingly common today, which raises one of the strangest questions in human evolution. Did ancient humans have ADHD? Well, yes and no. Not because ADHD didn't exist, but because nobody 40,000 years ago had psychiatrists, diagnostic manuals, or teachers writing "has trouble paying attention in class." The diagnosis is modern. The brain almost certainly isn't. And to understand why, we have to leave the modern world behind. Forget your apartment. Forget your phone. Forget deadlines. You're now standing somewhere in Ice Age Europe. It's early morning. The sun hasn't fully risen yet. Your tribe hasn't eaten since yesterday. There's no supermarket, no refrigerator, no emergency food delivery arriving in 20 minutes. If you don't find food today, you simply don't eat. As you begin walking, every member of your group scans the landscape. Most people are looking ahead, but one person can't stop looking everywhere. They're constantly turning their head, listening, watching, checking the bushes, glancing at the trees, looking behind the group. Distracted? Maybe. Or maybe they're the first person who notices the wolf hiding in the grass. Here's something fascinating. Many ADHD traits that seem inconvenient in modern society make much more sense inside an unpredictable environment. Psychologists call one of these traits hypervigilance. People with ADHD often notice things other people completely miss. In today's world, that can be exhausting. Your brain refuses to ignore background noises: a buzzing light, someone talking across the room, a notification, the sound of traffic outside. Modern life rewards ignoring all of that. Ancient life didn't. Imagine walking through a forest where almost every unusual sound could mean something important. A snapping twig, a flock of birds suddenly taking off, monkeys screaming somewhere in the distance, the silence that appears when every animal suddenly stops making noise. To us, they're just random sounds. To a hunter-gatherer, they could be the difference between going home or becoming dinner. Now, here's where things get really interesting. Scientists have noticed that the genetic variants associated with ADHD didn't suddenly appear a few thousand years ago. Many of them are incredibly old, far older than cities, far older than farming, far older than written history itself, which creates a fascinating evolutionary puzzle. Evolution is surprisingly ruthless. Traits that consistently reduce survival usually become less common over thousands of generations. Not always, but often. So why didn't these traits disappear? One possible answer has become known as the hunter versus farmer hypothesis. It's exactly what it sounds like. Imagine taking the same brain and placing it inside two completely different worlds. In the first world, you're a hunter. Every day is different. You travel constantly. You explore. You solve new problems. You react instantly whenever something unexpected happens. Routine barely exists. In the second world, you're a farmer. Every morning, you wake up, walk to the same field, plant the same crops, pull the same weeds, repair the same fence, day after day, month after month, year after year. Suddenly, the exact same brain that helped you survive yesterday starts becoming a problem. And this wasn't because humans changed overnight. The world did. For roughly 95% of Homo sapiens history, we lived as hunter-gatherers. Agriculture only appeared around 12,000 years ago. In evolutionary terms, that's almost yesterday, which means your brain spent hundreds of thousands of years adapting to one lifestyle, and only a tiny fraction adapting to the one you're living today. But hunting wasn't just about paying attention. Sometimes, paying attention for too long could actually get you killed. Picture two hunters standing near the edge of a forest. One becomes completely absorbed watching a herd of deer in the distance. The other can't stop looking around. He notices movement to his left, a strange smell carried by the wind, fresh footprints in the mud, a flock of birds exploding into the sky. His attention keeps jumping from one thing to another. Today, we'd probably call him distracted. 40,000 years ago, he might have been the only one who made it home. One of the defining characteristics of ADHD is something psychologists call novelty-seeking. People with ADHD often crave new experiences, new places, new ideas, new challenges. Modern society doesn't always reward that. Schools expect children to sit still for hours. Office jobs often involve repeating the same tasks every single day. But prehistoric life was almost the opposite. Every day brought a completely different set of problems. A river that wasn't there yesterday, fresh animal tracks leading in an unexpected direction, a new berry patch, a cave no one had explored before, a thunderstorm forcing the entire tribe to change course. Survival favored people who adapted quickly, not people who loved routine. Here's another interesting trait: impulsivity. Today, impulsive decisions can create all kinds of problems. Buying something you don't need, interrupting conversations, speaking before thinking. But imagine hearing a low growl behind you. You don't stop to analyze the situation. You don't schedule a meeting to discuss possible outcomes. You move immediately. In dangerous environments, hesitation can be just as deadly as making the wrong decision. Fast reactions often beat perfect decisions. And then there's hyperfocus. This one surprises many people because ADHD isn't actually a lack of attention. It's a difficulty controlling attention. Someone with ADHD might struggle to concentrate on boring tasks, then spend 8 straight hours completely absorbed in something fascinating without even noticing time passing. Scientists still don't fully understand why this happens, but imagine applying that ability to tracking an injured animal. Hour after hour, following tiny drops of blood, broken branches, bent grass, almost invisible footprints, ignoring hunger, ignoring exhaustion, ignoring everything except the trail. That kind of focus could turn a failed hunt into dinner for an entire family. Of course, there's another side to the story. Not every ADHD trait would have been helpful. Far from it. Impulsive people probably took unnecessary risks. Some wandered too far from camp. Others climbed dangerous cliffs, approached unfamiliar animals, ate plants they shouldn't have eaten. Evolution rarely creates perfect solutions. It creates trade-offs. The same traits that save your life one day can end it the next. That's why evolution doesn't produce perfect humans. It produces humans that survive just well enough to have children. That's the only score evolution keeps. Now, here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. Around 12,000 years ago, everything changed. Humans stopped wandering. Instead of following migrating animals, many groups began staying in one place. They planted crops, built villages, stored food, raised livestock. For the first time in history, success depended less on exploring and more on repeating. The best farmer wasn't necessarily the most curious person. It was often the one who planted at the right time, pulled weeds consistently, remembered seasons, maintained fences, protected stored grain. The world started rewarding predictability. Then civilization grew even larger. Cities, governments, writing, schools, factories, offices. Every step pushed humans toward longer periods of sustained attention. The very abilities that had become increasingly valuable over the last few thousand years are incredibly new by evolutionary standards. Think about your average weekday. You wake up because an alarm tells you to. You sit in traffic. You stare at a computer. You answer emails. You attend meetings. You spend hours focusing on tasks that have almost nothing to do with immediate survival. None of those environments existed for nearly all of human history. Your ancestors evolved in landscapes that changed every single day. Not inside fluorescent-lit buildings, where sitting still became a job requirement. This doesn't mean modern society is wrong. It simply means our brains evolved for one world and now live inside another. Which brings us to an uncomfortable question. Maybe ADHD isn't entirely about a brain that doesn't fit society. Maybe it's also about a society that no longer resembles the environment that shaped the human brain in the first place. But before we jump to that conclusion, there's one important thing we haven't talked about yet. If ADHD traits really offered evolutionary advantages, why doesn't everyone have them? And that's where evolution reveals one of its favorite tricks: balance. That's how evolution usually works. People often imagine evolution as a machine that keeps removing every bad trait until only the perfect humans remain. Nature doesn't work like that. Evolution isn't trying to build perfection, it's trying to build diversity. Imagine an entire tribe where every single person thinks exactly the same way. Everyone notices the same things. Everyone solves problems the same way. Everyone reacts at the same speed. At first, that sounds efficient, until the environment changes. A drought, a new predator, a different food source, a disease nobody has encountered before. Suddenly, the tribe needs someone who sees the world differently, someone willing to explore, someone willing to take risks, someone whose brain refuses to think like everyone else's. Variation isn't a bug, it's insurance. Even today, researchers believe many psychological traits exist along broad spectrums rather than neat categories. Attention, curiosity, impulsiveness, caution, sociability. Every human falls somewhere different, and that's probably exactly what helped our species spread across every continent on Earth. Some people stayed behind to protect camp. Others wandered into unknown valleys. Some patiently crafted stone tools for hours. Others climbed the nearest hill just to see what was over the next horizon. Humanity didn't survive because everyone thought alike. It survived because they didn't. Now, fast forward to the present. Imagine taking that same hunter's brain and dropping it into a modern classroom. Sit still. Don't interrupt. Focus on this worksheet for the next hour. Then later, an office. 8 hours, 1 chair, 1 screen, 1 spreadsheet. The environment changed faster than evolution ever could. Remember, agriculture began only around 12,000 years ago. Modern cities, even younger. Industrial society, only a few hundred years old. Smartphones, barely a couple of decades. Evolution doesn't rewrite the human brain that quickly. Your body still carries adaptations for a world that disappeared thousands of years ago. You crave sugar because food was once scarce. You fear social rejection because being expelled from your tribe once meant death. You wake up when you hear unusual noises at night because your ancestors couldn't afford to ignore them. So why would attention be any different? Of course, it's important to be careful here. Scientists don't believe ADHD exists simply because people are born hunters. The hunter versus farmer hypothesis remains exactly that, a hypothesis. Some studies support parts of it, others challenge it. The human brain is incredibly complicated. There is no ancient skeleton archaeologists can examine and confidently declare this person definitely had ADHD. Brains don't fossilize. Behavior rarely leaves evidence behind. What scientists can study are genetic patterns, modern populations, and the environments our ancestors evolved in. Those clues suggest something fascinating. The traits associated with ADHD have been with us for a very long time. Long enough that evolution never completely removed them, which usually means they offered advantages under at least some circumstances. And maybe that's the most important lesson. History has a strange habit of changing our definitions. 200 years ago, being left-handed was considered a flaw in many parts of the world. Today, it's simply another variation of being human. Perhaps one day we'll understand attention the same way. Not as something that's simply broken, but as something shaped by hundreds of thousands of years of survival in environments completely unlike our own. So, did ancient humans have ADHD? Not in the way we define it today. There were no psychiatrists, no diagnostic manuals, no classroom evaluations. But the minds, the genes, the behaviors, many of them almost certainly existed. Long before cities, long before farming, long before civilization itself. The restless child who struggles to sit through school, the adult whose thoughts never seem to slow down, the explorer who constantly searches for something new. Those traits may not be recent accidents. They may be echoes. Echoes of people who spent hundreds of thousands of years scanning forests instead of computer screens, following animal tracks instead of calendars, reacting to rustling grass instead of phone notifications. For almost all of human history, the world rewarded movement, curiosity, fast reactions, constant awareness. Only recently did it begin rewarding stillness. Maybe the biggest question isn't whether ancient humans had ADHD. Maybe the bigger question is this. If one of your ancestors suddenly woke up in your body tomorrow morning, sat through 8 hours of meetings, ignored hundreds of sounds around them, resisted every impulse to explore, and stared at a glowing rectangle all day, would they think your brain was broken? Or would they think the world was?